Very good morning. Thank you very much for keeping it here on NBS and joining us for breakfast meeting with myself, Jackie Mutesi. Now, if you're watching us for the very first time, breakfast meeting is an opportunity for us to sit down with the businesses that are operating in our community to let us know what they are up to, how they are solving the different challenges being faced by people living in the communities that they are serving. So to this end, the Uganda Development Bank recently launched and unveiled the Climate Finance Facility. It is aimed to transform Uganda into a green economy and has committed up to 50 billion shillings to the facility. Here in studio to explain to us exactly what that means, why Climate Finance Facility and why now, is Pius Wamala. He is the Senior Green Finance Officer at UDB. A very good morning to you, Pius. Thank you very much for joining us in the studio.
Good morning, Jackie, and good morning to the viewers of NBS.
Pius, let's start this conversation off with understanding Uganda Development Bank. Who are you and what do you do?
Uganda Development Bank is 100% owned by the government of Uganda. It's a national development finance institution with a mandate to accelerate socio-economic developments in the country through sustainable financial interventions, call them solutions, largely debt and equity. And under debt, we have quite a number of products where we have term loans, we have asset finance facility. I don't know if we shall have an opportunity to dive deep into these. We have trade finance facility, contract financing, etc. So we largely support private sector investments that demonstrate potential to improve or show high socio-economic value in terms of job creation, tax generation, improved production outputs, better if they're able to bring in some foreign exchange into the country. Our interventions are aligned to the National Development Plan or programs. Remember, these are 5-year programs, so right now it's the NDP3. So we look at priority sectors. We look at primary agriculture, or agriculture in general, but broken down into primary agriculture and agro-processing. But we also have tourism. We have human capital development, where we look at health and education. We have infrastructure. So there are basically 5, and industry, what we call manufacturing. So these, like I said, term loans, but also other facilities, so given out at an interest rate that is really, really affordable, 12%. And as we are unveiling the Climate Finance Facility, maybe later on I'll be explaining what the Climate Finance Facility is, because these priority sectors now turn into different priority sectors, the same, but aligned to now sustainable practices that improve the environment.
That improve the environment.
That show environmental benefits, that help us be able to adapt to the vulnerabilities or reduce the vulnerabilities to the impacts of climate change.
Of climate change.
Like the ones we recently saw.
So as a bank that specializes in access to finance, what is the Climate Finance Facility?
Maybe before I explain the Climate Finance Facility, let me help people understand what climate finance is, what green finance is. These are investments, lending operations that seek to show or improve the environment. Sustainable environmental benefits should be part of it. But then, how do we address the climate impact? This particular facility will be able to do that. So, given the threats of climate change at the moment, this facility is a special pool of funds. It's a special purpose vehicle that will help us unlock investments within the local green sector, understanding how do we create local solutions to these adverse impacts of climate change.
Absolutely. And why did you start the UDB Finance Facility now, as opposed to, let's say, a decade ago?
That's an interesting question. Why now and not a decade ago? One, when we look at the increasing threat of climate change, the severity the frequency at which these impacts are occurring now. Look at the floods that recently happened around River Katonga. Look at the recent landslides in Bulambuli, the side of eastern Uganda. So the pressure on the natural resources, when you look at the forest cover, now about 10 to 12.4% according to statistics by the National Forestry Authority. From 24% in 1990 to 12% now. When you look at the wetlands degradation from 15.5% in 1994 to about 8.9 now, that shows you the increasing population growth, the pressure that the population is putting onto our environment, and then compared to what it was 10 years ago. If we're about 32 million people in 2010, we are now 48 million people. Some other statistics show we are almost hitting the 50 million people mark. What does that show you? We need to now start waking up and see how do we actually address this. And the private sector can best help us address this, because they will be concerned about the businesses, the financial losses that may come with the way these businesses are managed if we don't solve the impacts of climate change.
Absolutely. Pius, it's unfortunate that as Uganda or as middle-income countries and African countries, we have very minimal input towards the destruction of the environment, yet we suffer the consequences the most. As UDB, how much have you put aside towards this financing facility, and what is its allocation?
That's very true, Jackie, and maybe to the viewers watching us. When you look at the EU, China, USA, contributing about 56% to the global emissions, those that cause global warming, maybe to soften the language a little bit. Then when you look at Africa, contributing less than 4% to the global emissions. So that shows you that our contribution is really minimal, but we suffer the most consequences. One, because of our adaptive capacity in terms of the different resources. For example, when you look at the people that suffered after River Katonga flooded, part of River Katonga flooded, people's businesses were affected. The supply chains, the value chains on how the products are moving, those that are doing foodstuffs, most of them were rotting, others were expiring because they wouldn't have buyers. People weren't crossing through. When you look at Bulambuli, we now need resources to actually evacuate these people, relocate them to more safer places. So yes, you realize that we suffer the most, but what are we supposed to do? We need to put in place adaptive mechanisms. We need to put in place mitigation measures. Can we have early warning systems to maybe evacuate people before some of these eventualities happen, etc., etc.
Okay.
So,
Pius, when it comes to investment, how much as UDB have you invested into this facility? And like you've mentioned with the private sector and other banking organizations, isn't it time for other players to get involved when it comes to green finance? Maybe I should respond to the first one. UDB has put aside 50 billion Uganda shillings. But this is just seed capital or a drop in the ocean. We need to mobilize more resources from our development partners. We need to mobilize more resources as a government to see how we solve some of these issues. Of course, climate change is a concerted effort. Climate action, how we solve the challenges that come with climate impacts, requires concerted effort. It requires everyone to come on board. Yes, it could be a global challenge, but everyone in whichever sector you're working, whichever work you're doing, you will be affected by climate change here or there. For example, when you look at the heat these days, the temperatures are increasing. This is supposed to be a rainy season, March to May. But when you look at how the nights have actually been warmer or hotter, the sunshine outside, you realize everyone in one way or the other will actually be affected by the impacts of climate change. Absolutely.
Yes.
Pius, who are the beneficiaries of this facility, and how What do I require to benefit from the Green Finance Facility?
All Ugandans can actually benefit from the facility, but more importantly, private sector players, the businesses, the private investments. And of course, there are quite a number of requirements. I'll speak to some, but I encourage our viewers to also visit our website. I'll be talking about the website later on and the contact through which they can reach us. But one, the businesses should be registered. The businesses should be registered with URBS, and then you should be able to demonstrate the things we talked about, job creation, tax generation, and other production outputs, improved production outputs. So then we shall also look at the financial health of the business. But of course, this doesn't stop other small businesses from applying for this facility, because we actually reach out to different segments of society. We have the SMEs, the small and medium enterprises, and we have a special products for women, youth, under that particular one that we call the special programs. But we also have the mainstream lending for the large entities. So, and we are able to support some of these businesses, whether small or big, with non-financial solutions. Talk about business advisory, where we groom these businesses. We help them understand the basics of managing a business, financial literacy, governance, etc., etc. But we also have project preparation. There are businesses where people have very good ideas, but they're not bankable.
What does that mean?
How do we structure these businesses to make sure that they can get into the commercial sector, can be able to make profits, they can be able to grow their returns, financial returns. So we are able to do all this. So I encourage all Ugandans to actually benefit from this facility, but also other facilities within
UDB has ongoing.
Yeah.
I want to focus on the climate finance facility.
Yeah.
And one of the requirements I understand to qualify is the ability to demonstrate your green impact. What does green impact mean for a business?
Again, another interesting one. Maybe we could break this down for our viewers and businesses out there. Let me speak to this in terms of the sectors, the priority sectors within the climate finance facility. We talked about agriculture. Remember, agriculture is the backbone of this economy, employing over 68% of the population. So in this case, we are looking at climate smart agriculture. If we know that some areas face drought, are these farmers able to access water even during the dry season? Irrigation, that is one of them. We know that some of the seeds that are planted these days suffer drought. Can we help them acquire drought tolerant varieties of crops that they can withstand some of these shocks that come with the long dry spells? When you talk about the breeds of cattle, we know that culturally we come from areas where we appreciate quite large numbers of animals. But if you have a local breed that gives you 4 liters of milk and you have 500 of them, would you appreciate having 100 cows but give you maybe 25 liters of milk each? Is this something we want to embrace and appreciate? Of course, to reduce the impact that comes with this kind of farming. Now, that is climate smart agriculture. So that is now how you the business will be able to demonstrate that it shows that it is what? It reduces vulnerabilities to the climate impacts. Do they want us to support them with valley dams where they can be able to access water throughout the dry season? Do they want to improve their pasture so that even during the dry season, the animals are able to feed well and give you the outputs that you desire in terms of milk production, if it's meat production, etc., etc. Now, when you look at others like the clean energy, do you want to go solar? Solar is a clean energy. Do you want to do biogas, where you actually convert the manure maybe from the animals into your biogas plant, and then you're able to light instead of spending more amounts of money on electricity, etc. Can we balance that to have an energy mix, etc.? And then when you come to, for example, talking about the industry, under the climate finance facility, we look at this as the low carbon industries. For example, we've seen some of the sugar factories or companies that are able to turn their waste
into energy.
Into energy. And
I've seen that.
Put to the grid. Otherwise, this waste would end up in the environment. We are using machines where we use more water, more energy, more raw materials. Can we consider overhauling this machinery to substitute it with high-tech machinery, more improved machinery, more efficient machinery, where we have less raw materials that are used, we have less water that is used, we have less energy that is used, but we are still able to actually produce better quality outputs. That is an example around the industry that we could finance under the facility. When we look at the sustainable waste management, are you recycling? Are you doing wastewater treatment so that the water actually gives off less gaseous emissions before it is released out there? You've heard of incidences where factories are closed because of polluting the water sources around them. The contaminants are just left to flow into the rivers, the lakes. They're saying, okay, can we treat these before they actually get into the environment? You've seen poultry farmers that are feeding chicken with worms. You've seen that. So that means you could actually, through a method called, this could be a little bit technical, vermicomposting, where they actually nurture the worms and they are mixed with other feeds and then given to the chicken, rather than spending heavily on feeds that you may not be able to afford. You've heard of people turning plastic bottles into tiles. Others are using them to build. So these are innovations that we want to nurture within the climate finance facility. If you have interesting ideas around transport, we want to look at climate resilient infrastructure, whereby we are able to build public systems that are good enough for people to use, rather than having so many vehicles within the city. The jam is crazy, but they are also using fossil fuels that contribute to emissions,
but
other
Pius,
climate change
in
dangers,
our
etc.
Ugandan, we have actually made an initiative towards that with the electric motor vehicles in the country.
EV.
Do we have more projects like that that you're seeing as a green finance officer?
Yes, because we have Kayola, and I think it is doing well. We have other Kira EVs that are still being pre-tested, and feasibility studies are ongoing around these. And we want to see how they are able to be made electric. We are looking at putting charging points around our road infrastructure. So this is not something that we are going to do overnight, but it is something we want to grow to. We want to look at a smart city. We want to look at green buildings. You may not be aware of this, but we have so many buildings within the city where water is wasted. Can we have sensor taps? After washing your hands, it goes off, because you'll find somebody leaves the tap leaking all day. So there are really, really simple things that we could do to start with. Of course, this requires a lot of awareness going forward. It requires a lot of mindset change, attitude change, behavior change. It also requires a lot of incentives and subsidies. Because when you look at most of these green investments, the green technologies that we're talking about, they require high startup capital. Some of them are high costs. For example, when you look at solar. But the moment you've installed it, then let's look at the benefits in the long run. When you look at, for example, the sugar factories or industries that started the cogeneration, getting power from their waste activities, and they saving on power now, they are likely.
Absolutely. You've mentioned solving for the future. And I think what this is going to do, access to finance, what it will do is create a lot of innovation when it comes to the green space. I've been fortunate to attend a few energy conferences, and we already have people manufacturing batteries, electric batteries for, yes, let's say, motorbikes, for houses. But these people need funding. So what if somebody has an idea, let's say a student, if they have ideas and want to, say, formalize them and turn them into bankable businesses, is this something that you're able to help with? I know you already touched on it, but how do you foresee this increasing innovation?
This is actually, when you look at what they call the future of jobs, or these investments or sustainable businesses, they will require a lot of innovation, research, and development. What is UDB doing? Yes, we could have interesting ideas from people that don't even have the collateral security or the finances to start. We have quite a number of facilities, like I said, interesting ones, by the way. When you look at the equity product, where the bank is able to invest in shareholding in your business or company, only up to 10 years. And we help you nurture this business, grow this business to a point where you can break even and the business can continue. So we are able to fund ideas like those under that. But again, I talked about the business advisory and the project preparation support, where we try to also do feasibility studies for ideas that we think are bankable. Understand how these businesses will work. Will they have sources of raw materials? Will they have sustainable market opportunities, etc., etc. We are also able to do this under that. But we always also encourage the business people to prepare our businesses over time. Let's not come in a rush. Someone comes today and they want money after 3 days. Can we prepare our businesses? Can we prepare ourselves to actually access funding? And then maybe that way we can be able to help each other provide the affordable financing that is required by these businesses. Because indeed, I must assure the viewers out there that we're actually giving out this money at a very affordable interest rate, at a very affordable interest rate of 12%. So I don't want people out there to think that this is free money, but probably, like I said, we shall need subsidies and incentives going forward. For example, we have the EU Tourism Facility, we call it the EU Tourism Facility, where we actually give out part of this money as a grant, and we've been helping most of these tourism facilities recover from the impacts of COVID-19, and they have part of this money going to them as a grant. So those are some of the subsidies we're talking about. So we hope that we can be able to have more people coming on board to support this. We can have more subsidies, we can have more incentives, but there is a lot more that people can pick from our website, www.udbel.co.ug. They could also contact us directly on 0414 35 55 50.
Pius, in your closing remarks as a Senior Green Finance Officer, what can you share with businesses that are watching, our viewers? Any tips or any pro tips for the future?
I encourage people out there first to embrace this facility. We are happy to discuss these innovations and ideas, interesting ones, the technologies, the ICT. If you think there are any better ways in which we can improve, we are happy to listen to that. But I want to appreciate NBS for the opportunity again, but also appreciate the government of Uganda, main shareholders, and our clients, the private sector players that help us achieve all that we do.
Thank you very much. That was Pius Wamala. He is the Senior Finance Green Officer at Uganda Development Bank, letting you know the different financing options that are available for you as a business that wants to either get into the space of low impact on the environment, or is already in that space. Stick with us, we have more when it comes to the environment. We'll be discussing the World Environment Day shortly after the break.